Hey, it is time for an iceberg. Now, normally I don't make iceberg content. I mean, you could quite literally look at any of my videos and you would know that. But I decided, hey, I have not seen an iceberg on this topic we are talking about today, that being toxic fandoms. Now, I know that is kind of maybe a little broad, but regardless, I felt like I wanted to talk about some toxic fandoms, and this iceberg is not that big. I was the one who made it. So, I hope you guys enjoy. Content warning for the following. So the way that we're going to go through this iceberg is that the top of the iceberg will be usually less toxic than the lower parts of the iceberg. Unlike most icebergs, they tend to go from most known to least known from top to bottom. But it's kind of hard to not know about any of these fandoms. They're all pretty well known for the most part. So I decided to go with what my perception of what is a bad fandom, quote unquote. So let's just jump into it. Layer 1. So the first layer of this iceberg is going to be a bit odd. I know that looking at these three that are in the top layer might give you a bit of an odd idea. After all, Snowboo, you just said that the top layer was going to be the less toxic one. Yeah, you put Twitter, Tumblr, and 4chan there. Well, yeah, there's a reason for that. So, allow me to explain. I think that the main reason why I would want to put Twitter, Tumblr, and 4chan at the top of this iceberg is more or less because Twitter, Tumblr, and 4chan are what I would call the breeding grounds of toxicity. It's really hard to kind of give an exact scale to how toxic these platforms are because usually most of the toxic behavior takes place on these platforms. I felt it would be kind of odd if I put Twitter, Tumblr, and 4chan all the way at the bottom, because if I was going based off of how toxic they are, realistically they should be all the way at the bottom. So instead I decided to do a little funny and put them all the way at the top, mainly because everything below them is rooted in these platforms for the most part. You're not going to really get people being toxic on, I don't know, like your SMS, your WhatsApp, Line. Mind you, these are not the only breeding grounds for toxicity. I just want to say that now. There are other places where people can be toxic. I'm sure that the YouTube comment section can be horribly toxic, and I know that TikTok can be toxic. But for the most part, most of the times when people talk about toxic people, usually they're on Twitter, Tumblr, and 4chan. We could go into a little bit of each, but I don't really know if that serves much of a purpose. After all, these platforms will be discussed later on in the iceberg. Each of these fandoms argue on these platforms. Regardless, I'll go into a little bit of each of their reputations. Starting with Tumblr, the most infamous for being toxic. A lot of people remember Tumblr for being overly politically correct, I guess is what you would call it. They tend to have a reputation for overcorrecting a lot of the times when they see something that doesn't really fit their point of view. There will be an example later on in the iceberg that will be a perfect example of this. Twitter. Twitter is the most used, I believe, out of all of these. I'm sure that, like, technically the numbers for other platforms are probably bigger. I don't know. I'm not going to check that right now. That's completely inconsequential to this iceberg. Regardless, Twitter has a pretty big reputation for arguing and having really dumb opinions on basically anything. While you might not get on in an argument about anything on Tumblr, Twitter, you could quite literally have the most basic opinion on something, and someone will want to argue with you on just that. Again, there will be more examples that are specific to this later on in the iceberg, but usually, yeah, that's why a lot of people don't have their DMs opened, or they'll have private accounts and stuff like that. There's also a really big private quote retweet culture where people get jumped in quote retweets and just have a bunch of people mocking them or attacking them in quote retweets. So that might play a part in the toxic culture of Twitter, but regardless of anything, you will see people giving really weird argumentative opinions or attacking people on Twitter, even to this day. That is, I think, pretty much impossible to avoid. And I think that's kind of the main culture of Twitter, is just to argue about quite literally everything. Also, this is usually where most of the fandoms will begin to form on Twitter, at least these days, because a lot of the times it seems that Twitter has the biggest artist community out of any of these sites. They all have artists on them, but it seems like Twitter is the biggest one, and usually fandoms, at least from my perspective, seem to form around art and engagement. So I would argue that Twitter is probably the modern breeding grounds for just fandoms and communities for anything that you want. 4chan. I keep on saying this might be the most infamous or the most famous out of all these, but it's kind of hard to tell which has a more notoriety when it comes to toxicity, because all these kind of suck when it comes to that kind of issue, or at least have the reputation of sucking. Yeah, 4chan does tend to have a pretty notorious reputation. They are the one that is viewed the most negatively by mainstream news medias and mainstream outlets. Usually you'll see people say, oh, 4chan has a bunch of degenerates on it, and yeah, that's kind of, for the most part, the reputation that 4chan has following it. Again, 4chan also has a lot of fandoms on it that get created because of the way that the site is formatted. They also have a lot of artists on it, contrary to what it seems like people think, because a lot of 4chaners do actually make art. So yeah, 4chan typically also has a lot of fandoms coming out of the woodworks, and they might come off as odder than the others, but in terms of their toxicity, their reputation is really the main thing that I am aware of. Layer 2. Pokemon. So, Pokemon is, again, pretty infamous for the way that its community is. Yeah, I'm gonna probably stop saying that. I think all of these on this iceberg are pretty infamous. So I'm just gonna stop saying that, because, yeah, I'm pretty sure we all know why each of these is on this iceberg for the most part. I mean, most of the times when you hear about Pokemon, you'll encounter people talking about how, oh, after this gen, Pokemon got horrible. The game series is terrible now. And if you say that you like it, you might get jumped by certain crowds of people. But it also goes on the opposite ends of things, where if you say that, I didn't really like this region that much, you might get jumped by people who say, huh, you're one of these old geners, aren't you? So, yeah, Pokemon is, you're usually in a lose-lose situation if you're arguing about what your favorite gen is, because someone will probably say that the gen that you like sucks. For the most part, though, the reason why it's this high up is because the toxicity is kind of surface level. There's not that much bad toxicity, as I would call it. Like, someone's gonna call you an idiot, or they might mischaracterize you, but I don't really see much else happening besides that. Regardless of anything, I do want to say that I feel like Pokemon's toxicity has gotten worse. I mean, you guys could tell me. I've been in the Pokemon fandom for a while, personally, but it feels like the toxicity just gets worse with every generation. Or maybe I feel like it kind of started actually with Sword and Shield, with the Nat Dex issue. I feel like that might be the start of the toxicity, where people started getting real up in arms about everything. For the most part, though, yeah, you're going to be in a losing situation, like I said, so at least everyone is enjoying the toxicity. Also, a small note, but I remember seeing a tweet. There was a tweet I remember that said that Pokemon is like the opposite of, there was like an image that said that, like, the competitive players ruin a casual game. And I remember someone made the point saying Pokemon is like the opposite of that, because the competitive people tend to be more chill with everything. They're a lot more relaxed, versus like the casuals for Pokemon tend to jump at each other's throats and try to kill each other. Also, I actually kind of like most of the gens. I'll just say that now, except for Sword and Shield. I didn't really like that one. But I like Scarlet and Violet, so yeah. I guess you could attack me if you want. Fire Emblem. Yeah, I kind of grouped this together with Pokemon. Yeah, I guess I just kind of got lazy. Anyways, Fire Emblem has a toxic reputation, in my opinion, for the reason that it's kind of similar to Pokemon, actually, where new fans or people who are fans of the newer stuff you'll sometimes get like jumped on for liking the newer stuff and not engaging with the older stuff as much. Yeah, so for the most part, if you started playing Fire Emblem post like Fire Emblem Awakening, you might encounter some people who are like, you haven't played real Fire Emblem, have you? That kind of thing. Now, I'm not sure if that's changed much, because maybe if you played Awake, I feel like I haven't seen too many people judge you if you start with Awakening. But if you said you began with like 3 houses, you were like in tough luck, from my opinion. Like, you were probably gonna get jumped. Another aspect of Fire Emblem's toxicity is because of 3 houses. Because everyone loves to argue about 3 houses about, well, no, my house is right. Edelgard is always right. Actually, Dimitri is right. Actually, I really love Lady Rhea. I love her so much, please. So yeah, for the most part, yeah, the Fire Emblem deals with toxicity on some ends that are similar to Pokemon, but they also deal with some unique problems of their own relating to a singular game. Again, by the way, I liked the Golden Deer. Console Wars. So out of everything in this year, I feel like this is probably potentially one of the most well-known out of the bunch, just because of how broad it is. So when I talk about Console Wars, I am including literally every fanboy or bot for every single like console or PC. Like, you got the PC fanboys, you got the PlayStation fanboys, you got the Xbox fanboys, and you got the Nintendo fanboys. And for the most part, I am simply referring to all of them as a collective of people who live and die by their respective console or choice of a playing object, utensil, whatever you want to call it. You'll notice for the most part that people will intentionally create arguments or incendiary comments on usually Twitter at this point of time, and I feel like I've seen mainly PlayStation people doing this, but I'm not gonna call them out because I know all of them do this. But you'll see like a post being like, oh, when was the last time that Xbox and Nintendo ever created something like The Last of Us Part 2? And yeah, I don't know, that usually ends up leading to an actual civil war in the replies. And yeah, I don't know, that's pretty yucky. For the most part, people will just jump at each other. The reason why it's this high up, again, is because for the most part, it's just kind of surface level. People will yell at each other, but that's as much as you're going to encounter. And like I said, this goes every way. It's not only PlayStation fanboys that do this. You'll get Xbox people just being like, ha ha ha, Last of Us 2 suck. Or you'll get like Nintendo fans being like, Nintendo is always right. You said they were wrong. All in all, I feel like I don't really have much to comment about console wars and like fanboys for each of these, besides the fact that just, you could literally just play on any of them, man. Who cares? I have a Switch, but I also mainly play it on my PC. My brother got a PS5. Just play on what you like, man. Who cares? Why are you doing the company's job and acting like they're weird social brigade? You don't need to do that, man. Just relax. I also want to kind of mention, this isn't really console wars as much as it's just a reputation of like Xbox Live like chat rooms, which are mainly connected to COD, which I didn't actually put on this iceberg, but yeah, Xbox Live chat rooms are like, so what I would consider kind of baseline toxicity. I mean, you'll get people yelling at each other and saying racial slurs. So yeah, that's not nice. I mean, people on Twitter will be like, the young people of today wouldn't be able to deal with the Xbox Live chat rooms of back then. I don't know. I mean, I grew up with the Xbox Live chat rooms, man. I don't know. I don't think they're honestly as bad as people were making them out to be. There's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of slurs, there's a lot of everything. I don't know, I feel like the toxicity of today, honestly, is not all that different for the most part. The only difference is that if you said what you said back then in today's voice chats, you'd probably get banned. Mainstream anime. Yeah, this is a little broad. It's broad for a reason. I kind of am including most anime discussions because a lot of the times, for the most part, you'll see like the really large animes like Dragon Ball, Naruto and Boruto, and One Piece. People in those fandoms, Jujutsu Kaisen 2 is included in this. They tend to argue a lot on Twitter, which again, this is exactly my point. Twitter's the breeding ground for this. For the most part, they'll just argue with each other, being like, One Piece Gear 5. is infinitely more iconic than any of the Saiyans. Or you'll get someone being like, Jujutsu Kaisen actually clears every single shonen of back then. Or you'll get someone being like, people shit on Boruto too much. Boruto is actually the single greatest invention, better than any other anime, better than Mid-Piece, and better than Mid-Ball Z. Oh wait, you also can't forget the people who are like, yeah, but can he be Goku though? All in all though, I feel like for the most part, it's just people being annoying at each other and yelling at each other into the void. It's, again, surface level toxicity. K-pop. I feel like maybe I'm underestimating K-pop a little bit by putting it this high up, but yeah, K-pop has a... I feel like I said I would stop saying it, but it has a big reputation, and this will probably be the last time I say it. They have a really big reputation for being toxic. For the most part, they yell at anyone who says anything bad about their favorite K-pop group. Please don't judge me, K-pop fans. I'm just saying what I'm seeing on Twitter. You guys can be perfectly nice. Don't prove me right. Anyways, K-pop fans, from what I've seen on Twitter, typically will just jump at basically anyone who disrespects their favorite group from their point of view. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the most famous group for this is probably BTS, which, I mean, I like BTS music, but my god, a lot of the fans will quite literally jump at anyone who says anything negative about them. So yeah, you'll see a lot of that on Twitter. I haven't seen them too much lately, but yeah, they have a reputation for it. There's plenty of images and screenshots of people's DMs on Twitter where someone will DM, like a crazy K-pop fan, DMing them to keep themselves safe, as you would put it. Layer 3. League of Legends. Yeah, League of Legends. I know this one firsthand. Again, this is really well known for this kind of issue, but League of Legends is pretty toxic for the most part. I mean, I will say I feel like the reputation, from my point of view, seems to be a little blown up, but for the most part, I think that, yeah, its reputation is as follows. There's a lot of toxicity here. People will yell at you or will throw the game if you choose a character they don't like or you play a certain way that they didn't like. If you're like a jungler and you didn't help them you didn't help your bot lane in a fight, they might just start throwing and be like, oh, jungle diff, this jungle's fault, we're losing. So yeah, you'll see a lot of people being very, very annoyed, rude, angry, yelling at you in that type of game. I played the game, and I remember when I first started, I queued as jungle in, like, draft pick, I think, or a blind pick, and I remember that I got jungle, and I had never played jungle before, and immediately I started getting flamed, even though it was my first game. So, yeah, I at least experienced it firsthand. Also, yeah, you can't really exclude any of the other issues that games like League of Legends typically have. League of Legends, and I think for the most part, every single, like, multiplayer online game has this kind of issue. You're going to deal with every ism, like, possible in these games. League, COD, Valorant, all these games, you're going to deal with a bunch of racist people, you're going to deal with a bunch of sexist people. You're going to just deal with someone who's just throwing out every single unsavory word they could your way just because they don't like you. Undertale. Yeah, maybe this was a bit higher up than I probably should have put it, but I'm not that well versed in the Undertale Tumblr culture of back in the olden times. I don't know if I'm saying olden times, this game is not even that old, but regardless, yeah, I'm not that familiar with Undertale if I'm gonna keep it honest with you guys. I know the Undertale fandom of today, and for the most part, I mean, they do weird things, but I haven't seen that much odd things from them these days. I haven't seen people trying to kill each other yet, so yeah, this is I know for the most part, the reason why Undertale has a reputation for being toxic is mainly because of their Tumblr days, which we're gonna look at a little bit of that right now, actually. The most immediately well-known thing about the Undertale fandom, well, it actually took place on YouTube with popular game streamers, well, not really streamers, game content creators and YouTubers like, you know, Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, and those people. Markiplier was playing the game, doing what he wanted to do, which is fair. I mean, he's playing the game. And for those who don't know, in Undertale, you can either play the pacifist route, the neutral route, or the genocide route. They're exactly as what they sound like they are. The pacifist route is a route where you do not kill anything, any of the enemies. You spare everything. Neutral route, I mean, you kind of have to do the neutral route to actually do the pacifist route, but either you don't kill anything and you beat the game once, or you kill some things but not everything. And the genocide route entails killing every single living thing in your path. Markiplier decided that he wanted to destroy everything, which, yeah, fair enough. But Undertale people back then didn't really take too kindly to this. They wanted Markiplier to do the pacifist route, which for them, that's what they would consider the true route. So what did they do? They filled his entire comment section up with basically just them judging him, or saying they're gonna drop watching it, or they're going to get angry at him for doing the genocide route. You got a bunch of these comments. You'll start seeing them on screen right now. Credit to Kotaku. Kotaku, but yeah, credit to Kotaku. They're the ones where I found these images. You'll notice people typically kinda didn't like the fact that Markiplier was playing the way he wanted to. They were backseat gaming also, which I think for almost every human that I know is pretty frowned upon. No one likes a backseater. Let people enjoy the game at their own pace and let them enjoy it the way they want. Yeah, and according to the Kotaku article, this really culminated with Markiplier quitting the game. But looking over it, he did seem to play the game live on stream at some point later on. Regardless of anything, a lot of people took it as Markiplier, the way that he was playing it was the wrong way to play it and was a cruel way to play it, without really, giving Markiplier the chance to explore the game on his own. So yeah, for the most part, at least Markiplier got to enjoy the game later on with his friends. But Undertale's toxicity as a whole is pretty well represented in the situation. On top of that, I feel like for the most part, you'll see a lot of that, a lot of the issues that Undertale had also existed pretty heavily on Tumblr, where you would have people arguing with each other about if you're a bad person for even playing the genocide route, or if you disliked like Chara or something, that you didn't understand the game. Or people would argue with you about your understanding of characters, and they would try to make you feel like you were less than them for even trying to play a certain way. All in all, though, yeah, this issue, I feel like for the most part, is it's dimmed down a little bit. There's not that much toxicity, at least from what I've seen. But then again, I'm not really that big into the Undertale fandom myself. But nah. I feel like something that played a role in Undertale's toxicity and the way that they argue. Also, I forgot to include, but ships were a big thing on Tumblr, where if you shipped a certain thing, someone might say that you were like a subhuman for saying that, or for shipping that. So yeah, all in all, though, I feel like maybe something that played a role in Undertale's toxicity is the fact that a lot of the fans seem kind of young. So maybe that plays a role in their toxicity, but yeah, I'm not sure. Layer 4. Yeah, this is I kind of grouped all of these together, Marvel, Disney, and Star Wars, but I mean, they're all technically under the same umbrella, and they all kind of have similar fans. The Marvel bros are usually the group of people that say that if you don't like anything Marvel, or if you dislike a certain Marvel movie, that you just didn't understand it, or you're just a hater. Usually these people, I think, out of these three are the most normal out of the bunch, but at the same time, with certain movies, they really flared up to like absolutely insanely toxic levels. I think specifically with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I feel like they flared up to an absurdly toxic level, and that's mainly centered around the character of the Scarlet Witch. That character seems to just be in an area of like toxicity for people. There are people who will jump you for saying that the character is like evil. There's a lot of people who say that if you didn't side with her, then you're a bad person, stuff like that. Or people like say that she was the real protagonist and we had to watch her lose, without really taking into account the way that the movies intentionally portray her as, being the villain. All in all, though, yeah, I don't know. These fans are probably the most normal out of this trio. Disney, this is kind of connected to real life, actually, unlike a lot of these, because a lot of these, for the most part, don't really have the most real life examples of toxicity, but I feel like Disney actually has a bit of a mixture of some real life stuff and some like online presence with their toxicity. I'm not gonna go too much in their real life thing, only because I feel like for the most part, I'm actually unsure how toxic it is. But I know for a lot of people, the idea of thinking a Disney adult is odd. Like, there are people who get angry if you dislike them going to Disneyland or Disney World, which I don't mind if you go to those locations, but Disney fans in real life get a little cuckoo for their fandom. But we're not really only here to talk about how crazy you'll go for your fandom, because this would be a different tier list if that was the case. It's also about toxicity. So let's talk about the online thing with Disney hyper fans. Basically, my point is that they will get very uppity and angry about anything that is being aired or being published, like a movie coming out at the same time as one of their movies. I think a good example of this was seeing how people were very aggressive towards what was that Teenage Kraken movie again? Ah, yeah, there it is. It's Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. Yeah, that movie came out at a similar time period as the Little Mermaid live action. And I remember there were Disney fans like celebrating Ruby Gillman doing poorly in the box office. There were people like cheering it on as if Ruby Gillman slated Little Mermaid by even coming out at the same time period as it. I don't think I've seen anyone who was a fan of Ruby Gillman even talk about Disney movies, but apparently they really didn't like it. It seems like a lot of Disney fans get really uppity if you say a movie made by another animation studio is better. I feel like Ruby Gillman is the best example of that, but I'm sure if a Disney movie did better than like Puss in Boots, they would have been like cheering on Puss in Boots doing poorly, but since Puss in Boots did well, it stays safe. And finally, Star Wars. I feel like I could argue that Star Wars might be the worst of these, because Star Wars has multiple issues. One of these issues being that Star Wars' old fans really hate people who like the new stuff. Mind you, I have a lot of issues with newer Star Wars stuff, but there are some people who are like downright venomous towards new fans. This also goes further with the new fans, because the new fans also, don't worry, you guys got your toxic parts too. Star Wars fans, I remember towards the later films, were having shipping wars about Star Wars, which is something I didn't really expect. But yeah, Star Wars fans were saying who Rey should end up with, and they were very aggressive with their messaging, talking about how Reylo needed to be the canon ship, and if you didn't like it, you were a horrible person, sending you DMs, getting angry about it. Yeah, it seemed like I believe that Reylo fans started to get the actors and actresses to talk about the ship, and yeah, there was a lot of arguments about it online. I remember a lot of fangirls mostly saying that they really loved it and that it should be the canon ship. And a lot of people saying they really don't like it, with John Boyega being quite well known for not liking the ship because Kylo Ren does kind of attack and try to kill Rey. So yeah, Final Fantasy. So Final Fantasy, yeah, this one is again a little more outside of my expertise, but it actually follows a kind of similar trends. With old fans hating the new stuff, it seems like that's really common. Yeah, old fans, you really don't like it if you like the newer stuff, and I remember this being a really big issue back when certain Final Fantasies got released. I remember there being a lot of people, if you liked Final Fantasy 13, you would get like jumped for saying you liked bad Final Fantasy. And that still kind of, for the most part, seems to carry on today, because a lot of Final Fantasy fans who really like old Final Fantasy fans seem to really dislike the direction that newer Final Fantasies have taken. Particularly with the 7 Remake and 16, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter specifically talk about how this was the wrong direction to take Final Fantasy, how they were diluting 7 with the remake, or how 16, this isn't Final Fantasy, this is something else, it's too easy, you could just button mash. Meanwhile, they have like easy settings on. But yeah, there's a lot of these fans that are outright try to portray the entire new games as being outright bad. I put this down here mainly out of suggestion from fellow peers that I work with. They seem to believe that Final Fantasy is on the more toxic end, so I just listen to them. If I'm wrong, you guys could tell me in the comments. Smash Bros. This is one that I am abundantly clear with. I know this one very well. So let's talk about the age-old story of old fans hate new fans. We'll get into the competitive scene a little bit for this because it's pretty tied into Smash Bros.'s identity. But yeah, there's a lot of toxicity when it comes to just which Smash Bros. You think is the best one in general, even if you're a casual fan. And you might get jumped if you like a certain one, especially if you say you like Brawl, you are probably gonna get attacked. And especially with anything that's very new. So with the competitive scene, I'll give you guys the long short of it. Nintendo does not like competitive Smash, and seemingly they really did not like Melee, which is the other popular Smash game. The popular Smash games of today being Melee and Ultimate. So what happens then, huh? Well, fans start to argue with each other and they start hating each other. Melee fans hate Ultimate fans and Ultimate fans hate Melee fans. So what ended up happening is exactly that. They ended up hating each other and arguing with each other. And Melee fans feel like Ultimate fans don't understand the plight that they had to go through, which they did have to go through a lot. And Ultimate fans feel like they're being slighted by the Melee fans, which sometimes they are, yeah. They argue with each other frequently about which game is better. Spoiler alert, they're actually both pretty enjoyable. They're both good. This isn't something that you'll only see when talking about which game is your favorite. You'll also see a lot of toxicity depending on the character that you play in the game. This is a very, very well known to take place with certain characters. In Melee, that character is Jigglypuff. If you play Jigglypuff, you are going to be viewed as the Scourge of the Earth. Sorry, HBox. But for the most part, characters who stall the game are the enemy, and Melee characters who play very campy are very disliked in Melee because they want the pace to be as high as possible. Versus Ultimate, the character that tends to get the most hate is Steve, with some trickling out to a character like Kazuya, but Steve is the main recipient. Melee, there's a big video on it by Emblem about HBox, which you could see to learn more about Jigglypuff, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I will talk about a little bit about Steve. The Steve players go through hell and back, and I will not lie, I really do not like that character. I think that character is very bad competitively, but at the same time, people go absolutely mental for when people play this character. People who play this character are like usually younger than the other players playing this character, to the point where like a lot of them are like, I've seen like I think a couple of Steve players like 16, and if they win like a tournament, they start getting like death threats from people. We're like, relax, man, we're playing Smash. Imagine if you win with funny block guy and then immediately someone just looks at you in the face and just says, I will kill you. All in all though, I feel like for the most part, those are the reasons why I start to put these lower in the tiers, because people start to get more personal in some of these fandoms, specifically Smash Bros. I think is the real breaching point, where people start to get a lot more personal with their attacks and try to send people harassment in any way possible if they do something that they don't like or they express an opinion they don't like. And we're going to start to see that more and more the further down we go. We're about halfway there. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic is I keep on saying it, but it's well known for its toxicity. Yeah, Sonic tends to have a pretty big reputation when it comes to this kind of issue of toxicity, mainly because people will, for the most part, get very uppity if you like certain Sonic games or if you like a direction they're taking with the comics. And I feel like the reason that Sonic has this reputation is because it has media coming from all over the place. I mean, it's not really only a game, it also is a comic and a TV show. It's going all over the place, man. And because of that, its fandom is actually really big. You have a lot of people who are like, if you like the new direction the comic book is going, or if you like the art style that the new comic book has, you are a fake fan. Or they start to get really aggressive towards each other for basically the smallest issue. I think that the biggest issues you'll see specifically are things relating to new Sonic designs, where Sonic will have his design marginally changed from like comic to comic or from game to game. And people get very angry when you don't like a new design, or if you really like a new design. It's again kind of a lose-lose situation, where if you like a certain thing, you might honestly get jumped by a bunch of people. I feel like I'm really putting it here though, mostly as a legacy pick for its old toxicity, because for the most part, I think that people like Games Cage, you know, the hype guy, the one on Twitter, I feel like he's done a lot for Sonic's reputation. The game is it's done a big jump in its reputation. So you know what? Kudos to you, Games Cage. You've done a lot for Sonic. You've made the community a happier place, and I'm with you. Team Fortress, specifically Team Fortress 2. So, Team Fortress, yeah, it might be a bit of an odd one to have this low. But I won't lie, this is a little bit of bias coming through because I was a Team Fortress player for a long time, and I don't know why its reputation has changed into being this weird. Twitter has like mutated Team Fortress's identity into being this like, oh no, it's really accepting actually. It's a big Pog land. Everyone is welcome here. It's the best game. You should just play it, without realizing that Team Fortress, when I was playing it back then, it started devolving more and more into into basically being like COD lobbies where people just would throw any insult at you. You'll have like good moments too, just like any other game, where you'll have like people singing along to a song, but then you'll also have like games where people will just randomly start throwing slurs at you, man. Team Fortress is funny, but it's also not exactly the most accepting game on here. It's a fun game though, I'll give it that. Layer 6. Yeah, there's only one thing in here, it's My Hero Academia. Yeah, sorry. My Hero Academia, I feel, no, I'm stopping myself. My Hero Academia is an anime that is not included with the mainstream anime, even though it is a mainstream anime, mainly because it goes a step further than the other animes, from my opinion. You'll see this have the biggest breeding ground on both Twitter and Tumblr, where people will be very defensive or aggressive about ships you have. You'll have people, for example, saying that if you don't like pairing Bakugo and Deku together, that you're a horrible person who is homophobic, when they might not understand, really, that the reason why someone might not ship it is because Bakugo literally bullies Deku for the greater part of the series. Or you might see the same thing, but with Toga and Uraraka, even though, you know, Toga is, like, actually crazy. So, yeah, this is probably the fandom that is, like, the most focused on ship culture. At least, it's more focused on ship culture than anything above it. You'll see it a lot present here, and that's where they're going to be the most defensive towards it. And yeah, I mean, that's also the reason why I feel like My Hero typically has a pretty bad reputation amongst the animes. A lot of people really don't like it. I also think that one of the reasons why My Hero tends to have issues is that My Hero has a really young fandom, like really young for the most part. And since they engage in shipping culture, it usually will not go well. All in all, though, like I do want to say this at the end of this, though, but if you want to ship a certain character with whoever you want, ship who you want to ship. I'm not going to judge you. Do what you want to do. It's your headcanon. Everyone has their own. Do what you want to do. Make life what you want to make it. Just don't also attack other people, and you'll be fine. Unless someone is being, like, really mean, I guess you probably don't want to interact with those people, though. Layer 7. Genshin Impact. Yeah, Genshin Impact. This is a pretty toxic fandom when it comes to DMing people, it seems. A lot of people get very uppity if you dislike a character they like. And there's a lot of instances I could give of this, but I'm going to just try to give the long short of some issues with it. Starting with, I guess we'll just go with Raiden immediately. So the Raiden Shogun is a character within Genshin who is kind of morally gray for the most part. And I remember that when this character's quests were completed and their story was finished, if you said that you thought this character was not justified in doing what you thought they did, there were people who would argue to the grave with you. And I mean, like, yeah, they could have their opinion and you should have yours. But really, this should not be this big argument where you start to hurl insults at each other, man. Like, relax. But if that was really the only issue with it, this really wouldn't be where it is. Genshin has bigger issues on display than this. Now, the reason why Genshin is also this low is because Genshin typically has a lot of issues relating to their VAs from region to region. Like the English VA of Diluc, Mr. Chiplock, at one point, straight up said he does not really like engaging with Genshin's community, which it seems at least like it calmed down for the most part now, but back then he got, from what I understand, he didn't really like engaging with Genshin's fanbase because they were very angry that he liked some art that could have been insinuated as ship art. And yeah, this typically isn't really like a one-time only situation with Genshin, as the Chinese VA of Kokomi, one of the characters, apparently got harassed in a live stream for the character being bad, which doesn't, I mean, that doesn't really fix anything. I don't really know what the point of that was, but yeah. This also goes with toxicity also falls like pretty much like the most minor of discussions, like when the character Dea was being released. There's a lot of people saying that if you said that she was bad, that you were just being ignorant or stupid, or that you didn't deserve to play the game. People get very angry about it, and obviously there were people who were happy that she was bad and being really weird about it, but the character was bad, for reference, and some people said the character should be buffed, and they were for some reason not being treated with respect for it. Honestly, credit to people like Jeff. I don't know how he keeps his head on with the community, but online the community is pretty yucky, I'll say that much. At least in real life, though, it seems that the community has been pretty nice, all things considered. I went to a Genshin event for the Fontaine region release thingy, and everyone I met there was really nice. Yeah, so at least in real life, it seems that the community is fine, but online, these people quite literally like transform into animals. They're like werewolves, man. The Minecraft SMP communities. Dream, likely, specifically. Yeah, Dream. This is like very Twitter focused, and I actually have a really interesting point of why I wanted this one to be where it is, because Dream has a really toxic fan base that will jump on people for disliking him, and really the main reason why his fandom follows the same kinds of things that other fandoms follow. These fans will send like death threats, they'll do like the regular toxic stuff, they'll be very mean, they hate other people who dislike them. But really the reason why I kind of put them this low is that they all follow Dream as like the leader of it, they're all a part of his fandom. The interesting thing is that Dream doesn't really, maybe he has, but from what I witnessed, he is not really disencouraged his like fans. He hasn't really like said for his fans not to be toxic. He usually kind of like argues with people publicly, and when he argues with people with small followings publicly, usually his fans will then just dog on this person with a small following. I think there's like a really big, well-known case of him doing this. Yeah, there's a really well-known case of this where a guy who had the handle BallsLover32 co-retweeted him, and he immediately, like, well, I don't want to say immediately, but he responded very upset at them, which resulted in like a bunch of people being very angry at Mr. BallsLover32. So yeah, I mean, Dream typically likes to get down and dirty with people who don't like him online, it seems. The final layer. Voltron. So, Voltron, I don't know anything about this series, but it also has, even though I know nothing about it, it has a reputation for being the way it is. I know I said I wouldn't say that, I am so sorry. You guys have probably heard that like 8 times now in this video, but a lot of its toxicity seems to be really rooted with Tumblr and shipping wars, which I'm not very surprised with it, but yeah. Looking at what people were saying, a lot of people say that Voltron's toxicity is linked to, at least this comment by RioB2000, linked to anti-shipping, political correctness, and superfans who elevate certain characters in ships. At least seems to be part of the reason why it has such a bad reputation. But all in all, I mean, this is like, if I was to say anything, it's pretty much like an amalgamation of like why Tumblr is the way it is. Tumblr toxic, that's really all I can say about this. Yeah, and I feel like a big part of the reputation is some of the events, which included fans doing what Genshin fans did, being that they harassed VAs and people who were on the show, which don't do that, man. They're the ones making it. VAs Josh Keaton and Bex Tiller Kloss were both attacked quite a lot during the show's running, so yeah. And all in all, this person who I want to thank, Mao RM Ear, they actually compiled an album of some of the things that the fandom would spout out during their anger. So you could look at all of those. There will be a link in the description to some of the things that I referenced. So yeah, there's a lot that happened. There's a lot of death threats, a lot of less savory threats. So yeah, there's a lot of shipping. It seems like shipping might be one of the big roots of evil with fandoms. But yeah, shipping, anti-shipping, hatred, and a lot of threats. Like a whole lot of threats to a lot of people, including the people who work on the show. Steven Universe. Yep. Steven Universe. I'm holding myself back from saying what I said for like 8 of these other entries. Let's just start with this story. There was an artist who liked drawing Steven Universe art. They drew characters in a way that people on Tumblr really did not like. So what did they do? They bullied her so hard that she tried to end. Yeah, they really didn't take kindly to that. She apparently drew a character in a way that they just didn't like. I believe they drew her in a way that was too skinny in their point of view. And yeah, eventually the hate got so bad that she tried to do that. Obviously, this is quite extreme and is really one of the main reasons why it's this down on the iceberg. But all in all, like, people's, like with Voltron, there's a lot of issues with how a Tumblr is and how they believe that something isn't the way it should be. They tend to get very aggressive to the point where they try to genuinely get someone to do bad things to themselves. So yeah, all in all, Steven Universe fans got very hateful towards certain people, and that artist is not the only example. There are other artists who were, I believe the storyboard artist was also attacked quite a bit. So yeah, there's a lot of attacking in the Steven Universe fandom, at least back then, in 2015, around that time period. But yeah, it is one of the most well-known examples, I'm sorry I have to say it, but they are one of the most well-known examples of a toxic fandom. All fandoms are toxic. So we went through this entire iceberg, and we went through each and every one of these. We got to say which ones might have been more toxic than others, but all in all, at the end of the day, maybe none of that was correct. I don't actually know which fandom is more toxic than the other, because I don't have my feet in all these fandoms. But there is one thing I could say with pretty good certainty. All fandoms are toxic, at least to some degree. Let me explain. So, all in all, I feel like with every fandom, with every growing number they have, there is a higher likelihood that people will just act crueler, people will start to be more aggressive, they'll be more toxic. This is something that you really can't avoid if you start to get a big fandom, and I know some people, their solution is, aha, just gatekeep, but that won't work, because at the end of the day, people will join. You'll start to probably be more toxic because new people joined, and boom, your fandom is now toxic. No matter where you are, you can't escape from toxicity online. It's kind of just the nature of online fandoms. You'll always have some level of toxicity. Some will not be as toxic as others, I'm sure. Like, for example, I really haven't seen that much toxic things in a fandom like Tom and Jerry, man. But then you'll have another fandom like Genshin, where Genshin should be really calm and good as a fandom. I mean, it's just an anime game, man. But at the end of the day, toxicity follows, man. There will always be some level of toxicity to these fandoms. So, say it with me now. All fandoms are toxic. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This is my first time doing an Iceberg video. It kind of is all over the place, especially since I was the one who made it. I didn't really see anything like a toxic community or fandom Iceberg, so I decided let me create one. And in the comments, tell me if I forgot any one of the fandoms that are really toxic in this. I know, like, for example, some people might bring up something like Danganronpa, or someone bring up something like Homestuck, but I kind of had a hard time finding why they're toxic online. So yeah, they just let me know what fandoms are toxic. Let me know if there's something that I missed, or let me know if I was wrong about one of these. Maybe like, for example, like My Hero Academia is actually really accepting all in all these fandoms are actually not bad. I don't want to say they're bad. It's just like I said at the beginning of the video, regardless of anything, that the community that you like might have a toxic, at least appearance to other people. But if you know someone in the community, or if you're enjoying yourself talking about a game or book or movie that you like, and you have a good community out on your own, then you're fine. There's really nothing wrong with it. Appearances are appearances at the end of the day. If you love being in one of these communities, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, dude, I'm technically, for the most part, I would consider myself a part of the Genshin Impact community, and that community is all over the place, man. Just like what you like, enjoy what you enjoy, man, and at the end of the day, just have fun. And that's about it, so thank you guys for sticking through this entire iceberg video. I don't really know if I will make any more icebergs, but I will be making videos about a bunch of different topics, including some of the things on this iceberg. So, let me know what you guys want. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you didn't like the video. Let me know if I messed up, man. It will help no matter what. Leave a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to subscribe. And thank you guys so much. See you guys in the next one.